in the vast emptiness between the stars. Silence was the natural state of being for the crew of the Clyrari survey vessel. Luminous tide. This silence had become as familiar as the gentle hum of their life support systems. Until today. "Captain Sarek, we're detecting an anomaly." The sensor officer's voice quivered, their gill flaps pulsing rapidly with excitement or fear, perhaps both. "It's a rhythmic pulse, too regular to be natural." Sarek glided across the command deck, his iridescent scales catching the soft blue light of the monitoring stations. The Clyrari had explored this sector for generations without incident. Their survey missions were routine, cataloging stellar phenomena, charting resource-rich asteroids, and occasionally observing primitive species from a distance, never interfering, never revealing themselves. This was the way of the Confederacy. "Show me," Sarek commanded, his four-fingered hand hovering over the holographic display. The visualization materialized before him, a pulsing beacon, steady and deliberate. Not a distress signal, not a natural phenomenon, a presence. "Origin?" he asked. "Unknown, Captain, but it's powerful. Whatever's generating it must be—" The officer's words died as the ship's ambient lighting dimmed. Outside the observation dome, a shadow crept across the stars, eclipsing the distant sun they had been orbiting. The entire command crew turned as one. Against the canvas of space floated a silhouette so massive it defied comprehension. Angular and imposing, it bore none of the flowing organic architecture the Clyrari favored. This was a construct of hard edges and purpose, a human vessel. "Ancestors preserve us," whispered the first officer. "Nilani, it's them. The Earthborn." Sarek had studied the humans extensively. Though the Confederacy maintained a policy of non-interference with the younger species, they had monitored Earth's rapid technological advancement with growing concern. Humans had progressed from primitive radio signals to interstellar travel in mere centuries, a developmental sprint that alarmed the cautious Clyrari elders. But nothing in Sarek's studies had prepared him for this. "Magnify," he ordered, his voice steady despite the tremor in his dorsal crest. The image sharpened, revealing details that sent a wave of murmurs through the command deck. The human vessel bristled with what could only be weapons systems. Its hull, dark and textured like the ancient predators of the Clyrari homeworld, bore markings in the human script. "Can you translate?" Sarek asked the linguistics officer. After a moment, the officer responded, "It reads Aegis Ascendant, and below, smaller, Terran Alliance." Sarek knew the significance immediately. This was humanity's first Titan-class warship, the culmination of their military technology, the pride of their united colonies. And the luminous tide, with its survey equipment and minimal defensive capabilities, had just stumbled upon it. "Should we retreat, Captain?" Nilani asked, voicing the thought that hung heavy in the water-infused air of the command deck. Sarek considered the options. Fleeing might be interpreted as hostile. Staying might be interpreted as threatening. The delicate dance of first contact, official first contact, was about to begin, and the fate of two civilizations might hang on his decision. "No," he said finally. "We will observe protocol. Hail them." As the communications officer prepared the standard greeting package, a combination of mathematical sequences designed to demonstrate intelligence and peaceful intent, Sarek couldn't help but wonder, what happens when one civilization's beacon of strength becomes another's harbinger of fear? The question, he feared, was about to be answered. Captain Meera Patel stood on the command bridge of the Aegis Ascendant, hands clasped behind her back, spine straight as the massive viewports displayed the star field before them. At 43, she had spent more than half her life in space, serving the Terran Alliance through border skirmishes and pirate suppression missions. But commanding humanity's first Titan-class warship, That was the culmination of a career marked by both brilliant tactical decisions and the scars of battles that should never have been fought. "Captain," Lieutenant Rashid called from the sensor station. "We're detecting a vessel at coordinates 227 by 45 by 189. Configuration unknown." Mira's expression remained neutral, but her mind raced. The Aegis Ascendant's maiden patrol was supposed to be a show of force through established human territories, a reminder to potential dissidents that Earth and her colonies stood united. They weren't supposed to encounter unknown vessels in uncharted space. "Tactical assessment," she ordered. Commander James Frost, her XO, moved to the holographic display at the center of the bridge. Small vessel, approximately 1/5 our size. Minimal energy signatures that could indicate weapon systems. They appear to be primarily a research vessel, or designed to appear that way, Mira said, a caution born of experience. The bridge crew watched as the alien ship came into clearer view on their screens. It was unlike any vessel they had encountered, organic in shape, with what appeared to be translucent sections that pulsed with bioluminescence. "Beautiful," someone whispered. "Captain," the communications officer interrupted. "They're hailing us." Mira straightened her uniform jacket. This was precisely the type of situation that the Aegis Ascendant had been built to handle. Humanity's first line of defense against the unknown. But it was also the scenario that had kept her awake during the long nights of preparation. What if first contact became first conflict? "Put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered, and for the first time in recorded human history, humanity gazed upon the face of an alien intelligence. The being on screen had a vaguely humanoid upper body, but with iridescent scales instead of skin, gill-like structures at the neck, and large, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "I am Commander Serac of the Clyrari Confederacy vessel, Luminous Tide," the alien said, its mouth moving in ways that didn't quite match the translated words coming through the speakers. "We come in peace and seek dialogue." Mira felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Her response would set the tone for humanity's relationship with this species. "This is Captain Mira Patel of the Terran Alliance warship Aegis Ascendant," she replied, her voice firm but not hostile. "You have entered space claimed by the Alliance. State your purpose." There was a pause as the translation systems on both sides processed the exchange. "We are a survey vessel," Serac responded. "We did not realize this sector had been claimed. The Clyrari Confederacy respects territorial boundaries and offers apologies for any trespass." Mira studied the alien's body language, though she had no frame of reference for interpreting it. Were they being truthful? Or was this the prelude to an ambush? The Aegis Ascendant carried enough firepower to reduce the alien vessel to atoms. But that wasn't the mission. Never that. "Commander Frost," she said quietly. "Battle stations. Silent alert." Around the bridge, crew members moved with practiced efficiency, powering up systems without obvious external indicators. The Aegis Ascendant's massive engines hummed to life, ready to maneuver if necessary. "To Serac," she said. "The Alliance welcomes peaceful contact. However, we must insist that you maintain your current position while we verify your status." What she didn't say was that deep space probes had already been launched from the Aegis Aus Bay, scanning for any additional vessels that might be hiding beyond sensor range. Trust, but verify, the mantra of her career. As the standoff began, Mira couldn't help but reflect on the irony. The Aegis Ascendant had been built to prevent war, not start one. Its very existence was meant to be a deterrent, so overwhelming in its power that no species would dare challenge humanity. Yet here they were, the first test of that doctrine. And Mira found herself hoping that the ship's greatest strength would be its restraint, not its weaponry. On board the Luminous Tide, Serac watched the human captain with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. He had studied human expressions from intercepted broadcasts, but seeing one in real time was different. Captain Patel's face revealed little, her dark eyes steady and evaluative. "They've powered up their propulsion systems," reported the tactical officer. "Energy readings are spiking throughout their vessel." "Are they preparing to attack?" Nalani asked, her gill flaps fluttering anxiously. Serac considered the human vessel. Its design was intimidating, certainly, but the Clyrari had survived for millennia by understanding intentions rather than just capabilities. "No," he said finally. "They're establishing a position of strength. It's what I would do." His confidence was more performance than reality. The truth was, humans remained an enigma to the Confederacy. Their rapid technological advancement had outpaced the Clyrari's careful observation, where the Confederacy had evolved over tens of thousands of years, developing biotechnology that worked in harmony with their watery homeworlds. Humans had exploded across the stars in a mere few centuries, bringing with them metals and energies torn from the Earth. "Maintain our position," Serac ordered, "and continue transmitting peaceful intentions." As the minutes stretched into an hour, tension on the command deck only increased. The human warship, the Aegis Ascendant, remained positioned between the luminous tide and the route back to Clyrari space, its massive form blocking out constellations. "Captain," the communications officer called, "we're detecting small objects launched from the human vessel." Serac's heart raced. "Weapons?" "Uncertain. They're small, emitting scanning frequencies. Probes, perhaps." Probes meant information gathering, not immediate aggression. Still, Serac felt the growing pressure of responsibility. His ship carried 32 Clyrari lives. More importantly, his decisions here could affect billions back home. "Should we launch countermeasures?" Nalani suggested. "The biospheres could neutralize their probes." Serac shook his head. "No, any defensive action could be misinterpreted." He moved to the communications station. "Open the channel again." Captain Patel's face appeared on screen almost immediately, suggesting she had been waiting for his call. "Captain," Serac began, choosing his words carefully, "we have detected your scanning devices. We understand your caution. In the spirit of transparency, I am transmitting our vessel specifications and crew manifest to you now. We carry no weapons that could threaten a ship of your magnitude." He saw something flicker across the human's face. Surprise, perhaps, or skepticism. "Additionally," Serac continued, "I would like to offer information about the Clyrari Confederacy. We are a peaceful collective of worlds, dedicated to exploration and understanding. We have observed humanity's progress from a distance, but have maintained our policy of non-interference with developing species." There was a pause before Captain Patel responded, and when she did, her voice carried a new edge. "You've been watching us?" she asked. Serac realized his mistake immediately. To the Clyrari, observation was a sign of respect, the first step toward understanding another species. To humans, with their strong territorial instincts, it might seem like surveillance. Espionage. "Not in a manner that would violate your privacy," he clarified quickly. "We monitor radio transmissions from developing worlds, study their public communications. It is our way of determining when a species is ready for contact." "And you determined we weren't ready?" There was no mistaking the challenge in Captain Patel's voice now. Serac felt the situation slipping away from him. Cultural misunderstandings were the greatest danger in first contact scenarios, greater even than weapons. "It was not a judgment of readiness," he said. "The Confederacy has strict protocols. Official contact is initiated when a species develops sustainable interstellar travel and demonstrates unified planetary governance. Humanity has only recently achieved both." Captain Patel's expression remained unreadable. "And yet here we are, Commander Serac, making contact because you happened upon our patrol route." "Sometimes fate has its own protocols," Serac replied, attempting what he hoped translated as a diplomatic smile. To his relief, something in the human captain's posture seemed to relax slightly. "Indeed it does," she said. "We've reviewed your ship's specifications. While we appreciate the gesture of transparency, you understand we must maintain our security posture." "Of course," Serac acknowledged. "May I ask what brings the Aegis Ascendant to this particular sector? Our records indicated it was unclaimed space." Captain Patel's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "Our mission parameters are classified. However, I can tell you that the Terran Alliance has been expanding its influence. This sector contains resources of interest to us." Translation: the humans were still establishing their territory, and the Aegis Ascendant was the vanguard of that expansion. It was both a scientific mission and a show of force. Before Serac could respond, alarms blared across the luminous Tide's command deck. "Captain," the sensor officer called out, "multiple objects detected at the edge of the system, approaching rapidly." Serac turned back to the screen. "Captain Patel, are these vessels with you?" The human's eyes narrowed. "Negative. Our battle group is 3 systems away." She turned to someone off-screen. "Report." Serac watched as the human crew relayed information to their captain, noting the efficiency of their movements, the clear chain of command. When Captain Patel turned back to him, her expression had hardened. "Commander Serac, we're detecting what appears to be an asteroid swarm approaching this position. Unusual trajectory suggests artificial guidance." Serac felt his blood cool. "Pirates," he said. "The Vorazin." Captain Patel raised an eyebrow. "You're familiar with them?" "They're scavengers who prey on isolated ships throughout this quadrant. They use modified asteroids as both weapons and cover for their approach." Serac paused. "Captain Patel, the luminous Tide is not equipped to handle a Vorazin raid." A silent understanding passed between them. The human warship could easily defend itself, and potentially the Clyrari vessel as well. But would they? Captain Patel nodded once. "Maintain your position, Commander. The Aegis Ascendant will handle this situation." The transmission cut, and Serac turned to his anxious crew. "Captain," Nalani said softly, "do you trust the humans to protect us?" Serac watched as the massive warship's external lights shifted from standby blue to combat red. "I trust that their pride won't allow them to let us die while they watch," he replied. "And sometimes, pride is enough." Mira Patel didn't believe in coincidences. A previously unknown alien species and a pirate attack in the same day? Either the universe had a perverse sense of humor, or something more calculated was at play. "Analysis," she demanded, studying the tactical display. Commander Frost manipulated the holographic projection, highlighting the approaching objects. 17 asteroids. Captain. Mass varies from shuttle size to destroyer class. All on controlled trajectories. Scan indicates propulsion units embedded within the rock. Estimated time to intercept, 18 minutes. Life signs? Difficult to determine through the mineral interference, but thermal readings suggest small craft nestled within several of the larger asteroids. Mira nodded. Pirates using asteroids as both shields and weapons. Clever. Against most vessels, it would present an impossible choice. Waste ammunition on the decoys or risk being overwhelmed trying to identify the real threats. But the Aegis Ascendant wasn't most vessels. "Deploy countermeasures," she ordered. "I want a targeting solution on every asteroid in that swarm." "Captain," Lieutenant Kaito spoke up from the science station. "The alien vessel, the Clyrari ship, they're scanning the swarm as well. Their sensor technology. It's different from ours. They're using some kind of bioresonance scan that's penetrating the mineral interference more effectively than our standard methods." Mira considered this information. The tactical advantages of working with the Clyrari were obvious, but cooperation meant vulnerability. Trust. Open a channel to the luminous Tide, she decided. Commander Serac's face appeared on screen. his expression, if she was interpreting alien physiology correctly, showing tension. "Commander," she began, "your vessel appears to have superior sensor capabilities when it comes to these asteroids. We propose a temporary alliance. Your sensors guide our weapons." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "You would trust us with targeting data for your warship?" "I'm trusting you with the lives of my crew," Mira replied simply. "And you're trusting us with yours?" After a pause that felt longer than it probably was, Serac nodded. "We accept. I'm authorizing a direct feed from our sensors to your tactical systems." Mira turned to her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Rivera, coordinate with the Clyrari. I want precision strikes, minimal debris, maximum effect." "Yes, Captain," as the crew prepared for battle. Mira kept the channel to the Clyrari vessel open. A calculated risk, letting them observe human battle procedures, but also a gesture of the trust she was asking from them. "Captain Patel," Serac said, his voice carrying across the bridge. "There's something you should know about the Vorazin. They aren't just pirates. They're collectors. They seek unique technology, unique species. If they've identified your vessel as something new, they'll be coming for us specifically." Mira finished the thought. "Understood." The minutes ticked by as the asteroid swarm grew larger on the view screens. With the enhanced sensor data from the Clyrari, the tactical display now showed clear indicators of which asteroids contained Vorazin vessels and which were simply propelled debris. "Weapons hot," Lieutenant Rivera reported. "Target lock on all Vorazin craft." Mira straightened her uniform jacket. "Fire when ready, Lieutenant." The Aegis Ascendant shuddered as its main battery discharged for the first time outside of testing. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across space, striking the asteroids with surgical precision. Where they hit, rock vaporized instantly, exposing the Vorazin craft hidden within. "Direct hits on 8 targets," Rivera reported. "Vorazin vessels are emerging from cover." The view screen showed small, angular ships breaking away from the destroyed asteroids, their hulls reflecting the light of the nearby sun in chaotic patterns. "They're hailing us," the communications officer announced. Mira nodded. "Put them through." The screen split, now showing both Commander Serac and a new figure. The Vorazin captain was a surprise, humanoid but with a skeletal quality. Skin stretched tight over an elongated skull, eyes set deep in shadowed sockets. When it spoke, its voice was a metallic rasp. "Impressive display," the Vorazin said. "New ship, new weapons. We will add your technologies to our collection." "This is Captain Mira Patel of the Terran Alliance warship Aegis Ascendant," Mira responded, keeping her voice level. "You have attacked an Alliance vessel and an allied ship under our protection. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The Vorazin made a sound that might have been laughter. "Two species working together. Interesting. More valuable? We will take samples of both." The transmission cut abruptly. "Captain," Rivera called out, "the remaining asteroids are accelerating. Impact trajectory." Mira's mind raced through the tactical options. The Aegis could destroy the remaining asteroids, but the resulting debris field would endanger both ships. The Vorazin had calculated this. They were using the laws of physics as a weapon. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Coordinate with the luminous tide." "Captain Patel," Serac interrupted, his voice urgent. "We have a suggestion. The Clyrari use biotorpedoes, organic guidance systems capable of intercepting and redirecting objects. If you can destroy the largest asteroids, we can deploy our torpedoes to shepherd the fragments away from both our vessels." It was an elegant solution, human firepower combined with Clyrari precision. But it would require perfect timing and coordination between two crews who had met mere hours ago. "Do it," Mira decided. "Commander Frost, synchronize our fire control with the Clyrari launch sequence." As the bridge crew scrambled to implement the plan, Mira found herself in the unexpected position of placing her ship's safety in alien hands. Everything in her training cautioned against such trust. And yet... "Captain," Frost murmured beside her, "are you certain about this?" Mira watched as the Clyrari vessel began deploying what looked like glowing spheres, their bio-torpedoes, into space. "No," she admitted quietly. "But sometimes leadership means taking calculated risks. And right now, cooperation offers the best chance of survival for both our crews." Frost nodded, understanding the unspoken message. This was about more than just surviving a pirate attack. It was about setting a precedent for human-Clyrari relations. "Firing solution ready," Rivera announced. "Execute," Mira commanded. Once again, the Aegis Ascendant's weapons fired, this time targeting the largest asteroids in the swarm. As they shattered into thousands of fragments, the Clyrari biotorpedoes moved in, emitting pulses of energy that pushed the debris into new trajectories, away from both vessels. "It's working," Frost said, watching the tactical display with undisguised admiration. "The Clyrari technology is remarkable." "Vorazin vessels regrouping," Rivera reported. "They're launching smaller craft. Attack pattern." Mira studied the display. The Vorazin hadn't expected such effective coordination between human and Clyrari technology. Their attack formation was changing, becoming more aggressive and more desperate. "They're targeting the luminous tide," Frost observed. "They've identified it as the weaker vessel." Mira's decision was immediate. "Position the Aegis between the Vorazin and the Clyrari ship. Deploy point defense systems." "Captain," Frost cautioned, "that will expose our ventral section to their fire." "The Aegis can take it," Mira replied. "The luminous tide cannot." As the massive warship maneuvered to shield the smaller alien vessel, Mira opened the channel to Commander Serac again. "Commander, we're moving to provide cover. Continue redirecting the debris while we handle the Vorazin ships." Serac's expression was difficult to read, but his voice carried what sounded like surprise. "You're protecting us?" "That's what allies do," Mira responded simply. The Aegis Ascendant's point defense systems engaged, filling space with a network of energy pulses that intercepted the smaller Vorazin craft. Several exploded instantly, while others veered off, seeking weakness in the defensive screen. "They're persistent," Frost noted. "They're desperate," Mira corrected. "The Aegis represents technology they've never seen before. The Clyrari biosystems are equally unique. Together, we're the ultimate prize." As if to confirm her assessment, the remaining Vorazin vessels began a coordinated attack run, focusing their fire on a single section of the Aegis' hull. "Hull integrity at 92% in Section 18C, reported the damage control officer. "Regenerative armor responding." Mira allowed herself a small smile. The Aegis Ascendant's adaptive armor, capable of redistributing energy and repairing itself, was performing exactly as designed. Against most opponents, it made the Titan class virtually invulnerable. But the Vorazin were adapting too. Their next volley targeted the same section but with modulated frequencies, probing for weaknesses in the armor's response pattern. "Hull integrity at 87% and dropping," came the update. "They're learning our defensive algorithms." "Captain," Serac's voice came through the comm, "we're detecting an energy buildup in the largest Vorazin vessel. It appears to be some kind of gravitational weapon." Mira felt a chill. Gravitational weapons were theoretical in Alliance science, devices capable of creating localized distortions in space-time. If the Vorazin had such technology... "All hands, brace for impact," she ordered. "Divert emergency power to structural integrity fields." The bridge crew secured themselves as the Aegis shuddered, caught in the invisible grip of the Vorazin weapon. Metal groaned as conflicting gravitational forces pulled at the massive ship's structure. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15, reported the damage control officer, voice strained. Emergency force fields holding. On the tactical display, Mira saw the Vorazin capital ship positioning itself for another attack, this time aimed at the luminous tide, which remained partially exposed despite the Aegis's protective position. A plan formed in Mira's mind. Risky, potentially sacrificial, but with the highest probability of success. Commander Frost, prepare to execute attack pattern Patel 7, she ordered, and open a channel to the luminous tide. Sarak's face appeared, his expression showing concern. Captain Patel, our sensors indicate your vessel has sustained damage. Nothing we can't handle, Mira assured him, though the continuing groans from the ship's structure suggested otherwise. Commander, I need your vessel to prepare for immediate high-velocity movement on my mark. What are you planning? Sarak asked. The Aegis is going to execute a tactical jump directly in front of the Vorazin capital ship. The spatial displacement will disrupt their gravitational weapon. When that happens, I need the luminous tide to launch everything you have at these coordinates. She transmitted the position data. Can your bio-torpedoes penetrate their shields? Sarak considered for a moment. Not individually, but in sufficient concentration. Yes, it's possible. Good, because you'll only get one chance. Mira leaned forward. Commander, I need to know you can do this. The alien commander's large eyes held hers. We will not fail you. Captain Patel. Mira nodded once, then turned to her crew. Prepare for tactical jump. All hands secure for maneuver. The Aegis Ascendant's engines hummed with power as the massive ship prepared for a feat of physics that would have been impossible for any vessel before it. A controlled micro-jump through space, covering mere kilometers instead of light years, but with pinpoint precision. Jump calculations complete, reported the navigation officer. Warning, structural integrity at risk due to existing damage. Noted, Mira said. Execute jump on my mark. She opened the channel to the luminous tide once more. Commander Sarak, prepare your attack run. Ready, Captain Patel. Mira took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 2 crews' lives on her shoulders. Mark! Space seemed to fold around the Aegis Ascendant as the massive warship disappeared from its position and reappeared directly in front of the Vorazin capital ship, so close that their shields sparked against each other. The sudden displacement created a shock wave that rippled through space, disrupting the gravitational weapon's focus. Now, Commander, Mira called. The luminous tide surged forward, deploying dozens of bio-torpedoes that swarmed toward the Vorazin ship like luminescent predators. They converged on a single point in the enemy's shield, their combined energy creating a momentary breach. Fire all forward batteries, Mira ordered. The Aegis Ascendant's main guns discharged directly into the shield breach, the concentrated energy tearing through the Vorazin ship's hull. Secondary explosions blossomed along its length as systems overloaded. Direct hit, Rivera reported. Vorazin capital ship is venting atmosphere. Their weapons are offline. Mira allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before turning her attention to the remaining enemy vessels. Status of the other Vorazin ships? Retreating, Captain, Frost replied. It seems they've lost their appetite for this fight. As the bridge crew began damage assessment and casualty reports, Mira opened a channel to the luminous tide. Commander Sarak, status? There was no immediate response. Scan the Klyrari vessel, she ordered, a note of urgency in her voice. Captain, the sensor officer reported after a tense moment. The luminous tide appears to have suffered damage during their attack run. Their propulsion system is offline, life support functioning at minimal levels. Mira made her decision instantly. Prepare rescue teams, medical and engineering personnel only. Minimal security escort. She turned to Frost. Commander, you have the bridge. I'm going to oversee the rescue operation personally. Captain, Frost began, concern evident in his voice. Protocol states. I know what protocol states, Mira interrupted. And I know that the successful outcome of this encounter depends as much on what happens next as what happened during the battle. She softened her tone. The Aegis Ascendant wasn't built just to win fights, James. It was built to forge a path forward for humanity. Sometimes that means taking the first step yourself. Frost nodded, understanding. Yes, Captain. As Mira made her way to the shuttle bay, she reflected on the strangeness of the day's events. The Aegis Ascendant's maiden patrol had been intended as a show of human military might, a declaration to the galaxy that humanity had arrived and was to be respected. Instead, it had become a demonstration of something far more powerful, the potential for different species to work together against a common threat. And perhaps, Mira thought as she prepared to board the shuttle, that was a better first impression to make on the galaxy after all. Serac drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of the emergency lighting bathing the command deck in a soft purple glow. The attack run against the Vorazin ship had succeeded, but at a cost. When the gravitational weapon had disrupted, it had sent out a final pulse that caught the luminous tide as it deployed its bio-torpedoes. Captain! Nalani's voice seemed to come from far away. Captain, can you hear me? Serac forced his eyes open. His first officer was leaning over him, concern evident in her rapid gill movements. Status, he managed to say, his voice weak. Hull breach on the lower decks, emergency containment holding, propulsion and main power offline. Nalani helped him sit up. The human vessel, the Aegis Ascendant. They're hailing us. Serac blinked, trying to clear his vision. Put them through. The communication screen flickered, showing Captain Patel's face. There was a cut above her right eye, but her expression remained composed. Commander Serac, she said. Our scans show your vessel has sustained significant damage. We're preparing rescue teams now. The implications took a moment to register through Serac's dazed mind. The humans were sending people, physically boarding a Clyrari vessel. It was unprecedented. Captain Patel, he responded, trying to keep his voice steady. While we appreciate the offer, Clyrari physiology is very different from human. Our environment is water-based, with specific mineral content and higher pressure than Earth standard. Patel finished for him. Yes, Commander, we've analyzed the data you shared earlier. Our teams will be equipped with appropriate gear, and we're bringing portable environmental units for any of your crew who need evacuation. Serac was stunned by the thoroughness of the human preparation and by the implied trust. Captain Patel was sending her people into an alien environment to save lives that, until today, she hadn't known existed. We accept your assistance, Serac said finally, and we are grateful. Captain Patel nodded once. Shuttles launching now. Expect arrival in approximately 8 minutes. As the communication ended, Serac turned to Nalani. Prepare the crew and gather all scientific and cultural data we have on humans. Our people should know who they're about to meet. Captain, Nalani hesitated. The Confederacy protocols for first contact. We've broken nearly all of them today. Serac managed a weak laugh. I believe, First Officer, that the protocols were broken the moment we encountered a ship the size of a small moon carrying enough weaponry to level a planet. He paused, growing serious. But perhaps that's for the best. The old ways of careful distance and non-interference? They weren't designed for a galaxy where humans exist. As the crew prepared for the arrival of the human rescue teams, Serac contemplated the day's events. The Clyrari had always prided themselves on their peaceful approach to galactic relations, their harmonious technology, their patient observation. Yet today, it had been a human warship, the very embodiment of military might, that had demonstrated unexpected mercy and self-sacrifice. When the human shuttles docked with the luminous tide, Serac insisted on being present despite his injuries. The sight of humans in environmental suits designed to function in the Clyrari water-infused atmosphere was strange, almost comical, but their efficiency was impressive. The human medical teams worked seamlessly with the Clyrari medical staff, their equipment interfacing with Clyrari systems through adapters they had apparently fabricated during the short journey between ships. The engineering teams began emergency repairs to the most critical systems, stabilizing the vessel's life support. And leading them all was Captain Meera Patel herself. "Commander Serac," she said, her voice slightly distorted through her environmental suit's communication system. "Your medical officer tells me you were injured during the attack." "A minor concussion," Serac dismissed. "Nothing compared to the damage your ship sustained protecting mine." Captain Patel's expression was visible through her helmet's transparent faceplate. "The Aegis was designed to take hits. Your ship wasn't. You risked everything to help us defeat the Vorazin." "As did you," Serac pointed out. "Your tactical jump was impressive and dangerous." A small smile crossed the human captain's face. "The first rule of command: never ask your crew to take risks you wouldn't take yourself." It was a sentiment Serac understood all too well. "It seems our species may have more in common than either of us realized." As the rescue and repair operations continued, Serac and Captain Patel moved to the luminous Tides observation dome, now partially repaired. Through the transparent sections, they could see the massive form of the Aegis Ascendant hovering protectively nearby, its running lights reflecting off the scattered debris of the asteroid swarm and Vorazin ships. "When we began building the Titan class," Captain Patel said quietly, "there were those who argued it would make us targets, that such obvious military power would invite challenge rather than respect." "And what did you believe?" Serac asked. "I believed that strength isn't just about destruction. It's about the capacity to protect." She turned to face him. "Today proved that." Serac considered her words. "The Confederacy has always been cautious about direct intervention. We observe, we study, we prepare carefully for each new contact." He paused, perhaps too cautiously. "There's wisdom in caution," Captain Patel acknowledged. "Just as there's value in decisive action, perhaps both our peoples have something to learn from each other." A comfortable silence fell between them as they contemplated the vast star field beyond the dome. Two leaders from vastly different cultures, united by the universal language of duty and the unexpected bond forged in crisis. "Captain Patel," Serac said finally, "when your engineers have completed essential repairs to our vessel, I would like to formally invite you and a delegation from the Aegis Ascendant to visit the Clyrari Confederacy as official representatives of the Terran Alliance." The human captain's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise. "That would be a significant diplomatic step, Commander." "These are significant times," Serac replied, "and they call for bold initiatives." Captain Patel considered for a moment, then nodded. "I accept your invitation, Commander Serac." The Aegis Ascendant was commissioned to forge humanity's path among the stars. I can think of no better fulfillment of that mission than to establish peaceful relations with the Clyrari Confederacy. As they sealed their agreement with the formal gestures of their respective cultures, a Clyrari palm touch and a human handshake, Serac couldn't help but reflect on the strangeness of fate. The Clyrari had feared the day humans would build vessels like the Aegis Ascendant, seeing them as harbingers of conflict. Yet here they were, standing together in the aftermath of battle, planning for peace. Perhaps that was the true meaning of strength after all. Key. 3 months later, Meera Patel stood on the observation deck of the Aegis Ascendant, watching as the massive warship approached the Clyrari homeworld, Luminara. The planet was breathtaking, a swirling marble of deep blues and green-tinged clouds, orbited by 2 moons that created complex tidal patterns in the world-spanning oceans below. "It's beautiful," Commander Frost said, standing beside her. "Yes, it is." Mira agreed. And to think, just a few months ago, we didn't even know it existed. The journey to the Clyrari homeworld had been filled with preparation. After the luminous tide had been sufficiently repaired to make the journey home, both vessels had traveled to the nearest Terran outpost. There, while the Clyrari were treated as honored guests, Mira had spent countless hours in communication with Alliance leadership, explaining the first contact situation and the invitation to the Confederacy. To her surprise, the political reaction had been overwhelmingly positive. The successful joint operation against the Vorazin, coupled with the potential for diplomatic and technological exchange with an advanced alien civilization, had captured the imagination of humanity. The Aegis Ascendant's mission had been immediately reclassified from patrol to diplomatic escort. "Captain," the communications officer called, "we're receiving transmission from the Clyrari Planetary Defense Command. They're welcoming us to Luminara and providing approach vectors." Mira nodded. "Acknowledge their transmission and follow the provided flight path precisely." She turned to Frost. "Inform the diplomatic team to prepare for arrival." As the Aegis Ascendant entered orbit around Luminara, the view screen showed an astonishing sight. Hundreds of Clyrari vessels arranged in formation, their bioluminescent hulls creating patterns of light against the darkness of space. It was both a greeting and a display, a reminder that while the Confederacy might prize peace, they were not without their own strength. "Quite the welcoming committee," Frost observed. "Quite the statement," Mira corrected. "They're showing us they could have matched our military power if they'd chosen that path. But they didn't." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency as they positioned the massive warship in the designated orbital path. Below, shuttles were being prepared to transport Mira and the diplomatic team to the surface. "Captain," Frost said quietly, "the crew wanted me to tell you, they're proud. Of the ship, yes, but more importantly, of what it's come to represent." Mira felt a surge of emotion. When she had accepted command of the Aegis Ascendant, she had understood the historical significance. The first captain of humanity's first Titan-class warship. What she hadn't anticipated was how quickly that significance would evolve from military to diplomatic. "The feeling is mutual, Commander," she replied. "Now, let's make history." The descent to Luminara was a marvel of engineering accommodation. The human shuttles had been modified with Clyrari technology to allow safe passage through the planet's dense atmosphere, while the landing facilities had been adapted to handle craft designed for air rather than water entry. When they finally emerged onto the ceremonial platform in the capital city of Voran, Mira and her team wore specialized environmental suits that allowed them to move comfortably in the water-infused atmosphere. Before them stretched a vast amphitheater carved from living coral, filled with thousands of Clyrari citizens, their scales shimmering in the diffuse light that filtered through the atmospheric moisture. And at the center of the platform stood Commander Serac, now wearing the formal regalia of a Clyrari diplomatic envoy. "Captain Patel," he greeted her, his voice carrying across the amphitheater. "On behalf of the Clyrari Confederacy, I welcome you and your delegation to Luminara." Mira stepped forward, conscious of the weight of the moment. "Commander Serac, on behalf of the Terran Alliance and all humanity, we are honored by your welcome and grateful for this opportunity for friendship between our peoples." A murmur rippled through the assembled Clyrari, a sound like rushing water that Mira's translation software identified as approval. The formal ceremony that followed was both complex and beautiful. The Clyrari had prepared cultural presentations that showcased their history without overwhelming the human visitors with unfamiliar concepts. In turn, the Alliance delegation presented artifacts of human achievement, art, music, literature, and scientific accomplishments. But it was the final act of the ceremony that truly captured the significance of the day. On the central platform, technicians from both species unveiled a holographic display showing the Aegis Ascendant and a Clyrari vessel side by side. defending a stylized representation of both Luminara and Earth against shadowy threats. "Today," Serac announced to the assembly, "we recognize that true strength lies not in isolation but in alliance, not in fear, but in understanding. The human vessel, Aegis Ascendant, came to our space as a symbol of their protective power. It leaves as a bridge between our worlds." Mira stepped forward to stand beside him. "And the Clyrari have shown us that advanced technology need not be divorced from the natural world. That power need not come at the cost of harmony. Together, our peoples can achieve greatness neither could reach alone." As their words were translated and rippled through the amphitheater, the holographic ships in the display merged their defensive screens, creating a unified shield that encompassed both homeworlds. Later, as the formal reception continued in the breathtaking Coral Palace, Mira found a moment of relative privacy with Serac on a balcony overlooking the vast oceanic cityscape of Voron. "Your people seem to have accepted this alliance more readily than I would have expected," she observed. Serac's gill flaps pulsed in what Mira had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "The Confederacy has existed for thousands of years, Captain Patel. In that time, we have encountered many species, formed many alliances, but never have we met a people who progressed so quickly from planetary civilization to interstellar power. You feared us," Mira realized. "We respected your potential," Serac corrected gently. "And now, we respect your actions. The Aegis Ascendant could have destroyed the luminous tide with minimal effort. Instead, you risked your ship to save ours." Mira gazed out at the alien yet beautiful city below. "The Aegis was never meant to be just a weapon, Commander Serac. It was designed to represent the best of humanity, our determination, our ingenuity, and yes, our capacity for both strength and mercy. Then it has fulfilled its purpose admirably," Serac said. "As have you, Captain." From their vantage point, they could see the distant silhouette of the Aegis Ascendant in orbit, visible even through Luminara's atmosphere as the light of the system's star reflected off its massive hull. Alongside it floated several Clyrari vessels, not in defensive positions, but in escort formation. "What comes next?" Mira asked. "For our peoples?" "Exchange," Serac replied. "Knowledge, culture, technology. The Confederacy has much to offer in biotechnology, environmental engineering, sustainable energy, and the Alliance brings expertise in propulsion, materials science, defensive systems. And beyond the practical benefits," Mira pressed, "what does this alliance mean for the galaxy?" Serac's expression shifted into what Mira had learned was the Clyrari equivalent of a smile. "It means that when the next spacefaring species emerges, they will not find a divided galaxy of suspicious powers, but a united front of diverse civilizations working together. It means that strength and compassion need not be opposing forces." As they spoke, a communications officer approached, informing them that the formal treaty signing was about to begin. The culmination of 3 months of preparation, a document that would formalize the alliance between the Terran Alliance and the Clyrari Confederacy, establishing trade routes, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense agreements. Before they rejoined the main reception, Mira turned to Serac one last time. "When the luminous tide first detected the Aegis Ascendant, what did you think would happen?" "I feared the worst," Serac admitted. "A warship of that size. It seemed to promise only destruction. And now," Serac gestured toward the night sky, where the distant silhouette of the Aegis Ascendant still floated in orbit. "Now I see it as it truly is, not just a vessel of war, but a ship of possibility, a bridge between worlds." As they walked together toward the great hall where representatives from both civilizations waited to witness history, Mira reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. The Aegis Ascendant had been commissioned as humanity's first line of defense against the unknown threats of the galaxy. Instead, it had become the vanguard of their greatest alliance. Perhaps that, Mira thought, was the true measure of power, not the capacity to destroy, but the choice to protect, not the ability to stand alone, but the wisdom to stand together. And as the leaders of two vastly different civilizations signed the treaty that would forever link their fates, the Aegis Ascendant continued its silent orbit above, transformed from a symbol of war into a beacon of peace, leaving the void and old suspicions behind.